Thursdays at 4 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 p.m. only at Revolution Radio. Thursdays at 4 p.m. Tune into Revolution Radio, Studio A for Omnium Gatherum, a kaleidoscope of discussion. Thursdays at 4 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 p.m. only at Revolution Radio.
Become a master survivor and get the news you can use from Dr. Johnny every Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.org on Studio B, and get the Master Survivor Show Beyond PhD. Because of his military Mar-a-Lago contacts, Dr. Johnny will bring you in-depth intel that you will not hear anywhere else, whether it's from the political arena, outer space, or natural health breakthroughs. Dr. Johnny delivers the goods every week, bringing you hope, health, and happiness, but most important of all, the truth about our world and providing the tools to help you survive and thrive. So what are you waiting for? Tune in to The Master Survivor Beyond PhD every Sunday at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Studio B, on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.org.
Do you want to really get to the roots of good health and stay strong for the storms ahead? Then listen to Bridget's Well, Healing with the Elements of Life. Tuesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio A, where stories are shared about traditional foods, Chinese medicine, and simple, healthy living skills. Listen to Bridget's Well, Tuesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Studio A, right here on Revolution Radio.
Are you interested in the paranormal, murder mystery, real natural law? Do you enjoy interviews with amazing guests? Then join Crypt Rick every Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Revolution Radio. Studio A, freedomslips.com. Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking. Welcome to the Crypt.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
The spice extends life. The spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel. Travel without movement.
And greetings, Earth Explorers, and welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. And it's also tonight, Super Bowl Sunday. Yes, exactly. And we might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You'll be safely traveling with us as we endeavor to treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. This is the voice of the revolution. And we are streaming to you live with our good friends at Revolution Radio on freedomslips.org, the #1 listener-supported network on the planet. We're also streaming to you live on several video platforms all at the same time on Rumble and YouTube and Twitch and X, DLive, Foxhole, and Truth Refugee. And I'll give you what I can see of the Super Bowl highlights right now. The highlight is that Seattle is winning 6-0, and we're happy that New England has scored 0 so far. Both very good defenses, by the way. So the chat room is already filling up. Interesting comments tonight. John, let's see. Was it? Oh, yes. John Porton said that he bets Tri-Alpha Energy will get the reactor contract for the moon. We shall see. We shall see. I think it'll be more than one company, but we'll see what happens there. 86 Troll was the first one in tonight. Ammon T223 is here. And Dragnet's here. Thank you very much for saying hello to the chat room. I cannot do that except by audio, so I appreciate you. And my good friend Brad Marcus is out there. He's going to be speaking out in L.A. at the next Alien event with David Farman. So you might want to go out there and check that out. Very knowledgeable guy. Let's see. Truth Refugees here and Darth Fluffy. That's pretty good. I like that. Over there on Twitch, we appreciate you very much. Thanks for coming in tonight. Hand pink waving, face blue smiling. Bayonet says, that's good. Good. Tupac Sugar's here. Flippy Two's here. Carlin Hicks is here. This is good. Yeah, who needs the Super Bowl when you have Brooks Agnew? My point exactly. But I will let you know on the game, too. No, I'm not going to give you halftime highlights. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm sorry. Well, I can't do it. I can't tune in to Turning Point USA from here. So we're just not going to comment on the halftime show. Yes, onward to truth, distant sight. Exactly right. And in Foxhole, Rasta is here and others will join shortly. We appreciate you. We love you. Appreciate all of you. It has been a winter so far here in North Carolina. Wow, we've had more snow this year than I think, any year I've ever lived here. We've had snow here before, 2-3 inches at a time, but not 12. And the top of my driveway is still about 1.5 inches of glare ice. My postman will not deliver the mail to the door. Just have to go down, drive 18 miles to the post office. I can get out, but she won't come in and deliver the packages. So whatever they say about ice and snow and dead of night and blah, blah, blah. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. We you recall last week my story about the billion-dollar Chinese birth tourism industry in the U.S. You remember that? And several corporations thrived for a long time, selling condos and medical services for Chinese women by literally strong-arming a birthright citizenship clause into the 14th Amendment. It doesn't exist. There is no birthright citizenship clause in the 14th Amendment, but they put it in there just by sheer force. Trump put an end to the industry with an executive order banning children of non-citizens from receiving U.S. citizenship merely by breathing their first air on our soil. The Supreme Court has yet to make a decision on that, but I can tell you, if they go by history and they go by all the stuff that was written in the 1800s about this issue, and they're going to come up with the right decision, which is that there is no such thing as birthright citizenship in the United States. Anyway, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Florida announced the indictment of 11 Chinese migrants Wednesday Prosecutors said that the suspects allegedly engaged in a conspiracy to recruit United States citizens, men, preferably members of the armed services, to enter into sham marriages to Chinese nationals for the purpose of evading immigration laws and illicitly obtaining lawful permanent resident status for these Chinese nationals. Now, this isn't the first time they've done this. Florida had a very, very aggressive program, which, by the way, was led by Hillary's brother, Rodham. You remember what we're talking about, Rodham? He had a company down in Gulfport, Mississippi, that was running a scam to give grants to companies that would hire Chinese nationals. So what would happen is the Chinese were putting up money that was being invested into American companies that desperately needed investment money during the Obama administration, desperately, because Obama wasn't giving any money out. And in exchange, they agreed to hire Chinese nationals who would then work for that company for a number of years until they got a green card and then a path to citizenship in this country. And they went through money, like a lot of money. In fact, there was one electric car company that was run down there, which actually was run by the governor of Virginia, you remember. And it was all a scam. They never even broke ground, never even mowed the grass where this electric car company was going to be built. They just took the money. He took the money and he bought the governor's office in Virginia, and he was there for 4 years. And that was all a big scam. Well, this is another one. To create the illusion of a real marriage, the conspirators took photographs of the couples to create evidence that could be presented to immigration authorities to suggest that the couple actually got married, that the marriage was legitimate. And the couples were in loving, committed relationships, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure lots of sex, but that has little to do with anything, doesn't it? In reality, of course, the conspirators had agreed to a payment plan whereby the United States citizen spouse would receive a cash payment up front for marrying, air fingers quote, the Chinese national. A second payment when legal immigration status was obtained, and a final payment after the divorce. So the Trump administration recently took another move to end migrant marriage fraud by ending automatic citizenship for migrants who marry American citizens. The policy shift comes after President Trump's officials began cracking down on rising rates of marriage-related visa fraud by migrants who pay Americans for temporary marriages. I'm sure this probably extends to sisters who marry their brothers. You got that, illegal Omar? So while marrying a U.S. citizen has never been a locked-in guarantee, just ask a whole bunch of guys that married Canadian girls, that a migrant would be issued a green card. Marriages have previously offered a huge boost to a migrant's request for legal status. Taiwanese women, Chinese women, Canadian women, and has often been considered a rubber stamp for citizenship. But that is changing. That is changing as immigration attorneys are finding that U.S. citizenship and immigration services are giving such marriages much closer scrutiny than ever before. Marriage fraud industry has become a booming industry for decades as migrants have exploited the marriage citizenship loopholes to get quick citizenship through fake marriages. So you ugly guys out there that are approached by Asian women, oh, you're so hot, I have to have you, please get me to the United States and I will be your devoted wife forever. And here's a $50,000 payment just to make sure that happens. Don't forget, these are green uniform, red hat, goose-stepping communists, and they're using you to get into the United States to do a mission. We don't even know what that mission is yet. But to mention just a few recent cases, in 2024, a Connecticut bureaucrat was busted for running an immigrant marriage scam to push more than 100 of Joe Biden's migrants into legal status before President-elect Donald Trump took office. A similar scam was uncovered several years ago in California when feds ended a scheme that had allowed more than 400 illegal aliens to win automatic citizenship by fraudulently marrying Americans. So it's out there, and of course the Democrats have ruined it for everybody. So you guys that are thinking that you're going to get a woman from Latvia or Ukraine or something, offer them American citizenship and get them to come here to the United States to live with you for a while, don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. I knew a guy up in Washington State. He owned a little hotel, and he went through one of these bride programs, and he got a Russian wife who spoke limited English, but she was way hotter than he deserved. And she complained to me and my friends so many times that she regretted coming to the United States to be this guy's wife. I don't know if she ever found a way out of it. I'm sure that once they got divorced, she had to go back to Russia, but what's worse? Anyway, wow. I'll tell you, these stories, they just keep mounting up, and I'm so glad that they're finally doing something about it. Also, almost along these same lines, a different angle on what's going on in Minnesota. You often hear social media talking about what should happen to a woman who makes up stories about being raped and rob innocent men of their lives and often their freedom, sometimes decades in prison for something they did not do just because the woman said he did. Some men have served more than a dozen years on a false rape charge, and the question has always been, it still is out there on social media, you can read all you want about it, what should happen to the woman who makes such a false claim? Well, so far, it's nothing. That's where the whole Pound Me Too movement came from. Remember that? The Pound Me Too movement? That was all made up about that. We need to believe the woman no matter what she says, put these bastards in jail. They get no defense. We should believe the woman among everything. You remember that? It was infuriating. And I'll tell you what it did. What Wall Street did is they said, okay, Pound Me Too, you've ruined it for everybody. We are not hiring any women. Wall Street went years without hiring any women, all men. Why? Because of the Pound Me Too movement. That's why. They ruined it. They absolutely ruined it. So now, thousands and thousands of white liberal women are being issued rape whistles to blow in public to alert illegal aliens that ICE is present, and also to irritate the shit out of ICE agents. And there's a reported feud going on between leftist groups when it comes to the use of the rape whistles at anti-ICE protests and riots. Messages in Signal chat rooms, Fox News reviewed, showed activists in immigrant groups do not want mostly white allies blowing these rape whistles when they encounter U.S. immigration and ICE and customs enforcement, ICE agents. And the groups from Seattle to Montgomery County, Maryland, are telling mostly white rapid responders to back off, a dynamic described by activists as white saviors, reminding them that they are not cameo actors in an action movie against ICE. Instead, the video footage posted online shows leftists blowing rape whistles in a Minneapolis neighborhood during an ICE operation. And at one point, cars honked their horns in what was a quiet area. And it pisses everyone off. I guess that's what it's designed to do. ICE agents stormed a house, and before they get there, all these rape whistles go on, and it's like a protest symphony. Blowing a whistle in 2025 is the new wearing a face diaper alone in your car. Okay, it's the same energy. They're the same people. Peak moron signaling. That's what it's called. Peak moron signaling. And it isn't about being the loudest, I hate to tell you this, the bravest, or the most visible person on the scene or confronting immigration agents. It is a commitment to nonviolence, discipline, and harm reduction, centering the well-being of the most vulnerable immigrant and refugee communities in Washington. That's what they want you to believe. However, the Seattle-based groups say we believe in the whistles, and they claim that people wanted them used. Now, this dispute, and I'm going to explain to you my angle on this, this dispute escalated when Snohomish County, indivisible in Washington state, told followers this week it would follow the guidance and pause the distribution of the rape whistles to people. Stop blowing them. Stop blowing them. The local group is a chapter of the powerful national nonprofit Indivisible. You've probably heard of them, right? They have received $7.26 million from 2018 through 2023 from billionaire George Soros's Open Society Foundations, which is aligned with the Communist Party. I mean the Democrat Party. Okay, well, they're one and the same now, aren't they? More media shows evidence of leftists leaving the whistles out for people to take and use when they encounter ICE officers. Meanwhile, a dark money expert, this is where the money is not publicly known, it's backdoor money, said recently that anti-ICE rallies in Democrat-run Minnesota and in other states, they appear organic because, you know, nobody's wearing black and they're not all wearing masks and they don't all carry the same sign, but they are actually funded by leftist billionaires. And Scott Bessent is starting to go after not just the leftist billionaires, but the banks who handle their money. Oh yeah, they're going to audit these banks. Now, a number of highly organized and heavily funded groups are pushing anti-ICE protesters into wild confrontations with federal agents, hoping to get them killed. They actually want civilians to be beaten, shot, run over, jailed, and arrested so that, and go with me on this, so that the public will say, oh my God, I can't believe they did that to that unarmed middle-aged white woman. They shot her. They shot her with pepper pellets in the eye. They tear gassed her. You know, they slammed her into the concrete. Oh, that's what they want. That's what these leftist billionaires want. And they're sending these people in to these battle zones. They're not actually supposed to be battle zones. They're supposed to be out there arresting the people that the jails and the courts released improperly into the public, because those illegals that have committed those crimes, done those times, they're not going to go free. ICE is going to hunt them down. ICE is going to arrest them. Now, it would be much better, and Tom Homan says this better than I can, it'd be much better if in the safety and privacy of the jail or the courtroom where they're given their deportation orders would allow ICE to come in, quietly handcuff these people and take them to the border and deport them. We would never see them. News cameras would never film them. There would be no outrage. The people that are doing the crimes, the people that are doing the rapes and the murders and the assaults and the larceny and the drunk driving, all those people would no longer be in our community. They'd be gone. They would be deported, and we would never know anything about it. Just like during Clinton, just like during Obama, just like during Biden. They all deported millions of illegals, but you never saw any protests. Why? Because ICE didn't have to go into the neighborhoods to find them. And of course, if they come to your neighborhood and they're looking for Juan Valdez, I'm just using that name, representation of a real person is merely coincidental. They're looking for Juan Valdez, but in the process, they find Jose Martin and they find 6 or 7 other people that aren't supposed to be here. That's how this escalates. So my question is, should it be illegal? Should it be against the law to blow the rape whistle that's made to protect women who are in the process of being raped for the purpose of irritating the ICE agents? Are we actually allowing these women or facilitating these women to make a false rape accusation? I believe yes. And what happens, think about this, what happens if there really is a rape about to happen? What happens if there is a sexual assault about ready to happen? And a woman takes out a whistle and she blows it? Nothing. Nothing happens because everybody around will instantly think, oh, it's ICE. And they're trying to warn the illegals that ICE is in the neighborhood. Well, let's go the other way and stay out of that trouble. And the woman has no recourse. The very purpose for which the whistle was designed and manufactured and sold is thwarted by people who want to irritate ICE. It should be illegal to repurpose the rape whistle to prevent illegal aliens from being deported. Very funny. Play on words. I get it, Flippy, too. I get it. Washaki wins here, too. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. They're sending their citizens into a battle zone, hoping that they will get killed so they can put them on the news and use them as a martyr. And it's happened a couple times, and both times they have been made martyrs of. What was that, Mad Hat? I think Juan went a little far to the north on his hunt for coffee beans. Right. I got that. Wow. All right. It's interesting life, isn't it? So Artemis 2 is delayed again. Okay, SpaceX has delayed its plans to focus on Mars, and it is now prioritizing the moon, as I said last year, and as I said in my book, Asteroid Mining: The Future of Energy. The race is on. The gold rush is on for the moon. SpaceX is going to target March of 2027, which is not really that far in terms of a corporation putting things together, trust me. And they're focused on a lunar landing without astronauts on board. And this is going to be purely equipment. And I'm going to share an idea that I have with you that I think is underway, but I don't have any evidence of it, but my mind tells me it's underway. And of course, the question everybody's asking now is, will China be the first to put humans back on the moon? I'm telling you, China is kicking our ass on the moon. They have missions on the far side of the moon that have been operating pretty much unsupervised. It's not, I don't think, a very productive area of the moon, but it's more about being there, testing your equipment and your methods, than it is about actually getting a return on the investment. They're somewhere around what you would call the equator on the far side of the moon. You would call it the dark side of the moon, but there's really no such thing as the dark side of the moon. It's the far side of the moon, the side of the moon that doesn't face Earth. Now, I don't think it's going to be very productive as far as, mining or discovering anything that's of value here on the Earth, except for the experience that they have with the rovers and batteries and charging systems and things like that, which, when it gets minus 240 degrees Fahrenheit, it's a good test of your shit. You got to go 10 to 14 days in that kind of cold. And then you got to go 10 to 14 days with it 240 degrees above Fahrenheit, which is quite warm. When you have this 480 degree swing in temperature, all kinds of things are tested. Every fitting, every bearing, every circuit is tested. And when you're in the dark and the cold, there's no solar power. And if you don't have a battery that will last 15 days and start your electronics back up at the end of that period, you're dead. Just ask the Indians, ask the Japanese, ask the Americans. Everything we put up there is dead, except for the things that have like a plutonium battery in them to keep them warm and allow the electronics to start back up again and engage the solar panels. Well, SpaceX told its investors, now they don't have, they're not publicly traded, but they still have major investors that are working with Elon Musk. And they're prioritizing the development of its Starship vehicle and aligning with NASA's Artemis program, which was supposed to launch yesterday. It didn't launch. SpaceX is building a human landing system to put astronauts on the lunar surface for the first time since Apollo. And we're not talking about landing 3 or 4 guys. We're talking about putting a colony up there and making it productive. Obviously, they're going to need power, which has to come from something like a kilowatt generator. Kilowatt generator will generate about 1,000 watts, which is a pretty small generator, by Earth standards. I have a 3,500 watt generator downstairs. It would take at least 1 kilowatt generator. These are nuclear powered. They're powered by fission, the actual decay of fissile material inside the reactor. It would take at least 1 of those for every human that you're going to put on the moon. So if you're going to put 100 humans on the moon, you need 100 kilowatt generators. And that's just the bare necessity, just enough to make water, oxygen, warmth for 1 astronaut. Not enough to do a lot of work or run equipment or a drill or anything like that. Just keep that person alive. SpaceX agreed to acquire a company called XAI, which I believe the deal was about $1.3, $1.4 trillion. It was a massive amount of money. It values the rocket and the satellite company at $1 trillion and the artificial intelligence outfit at $250 billion. Now, they didn't respond with a lot of details, especially to management companies and news companies like Reuters, who were asking a bunch of questions about it. They were pretty mum on it, what the benefits are going to be, what the strategy is going to be. But I'm going to let you in on it. If you're going to build a lunar colony, and I'm sure they've come to the same conclusion I have in my book, Asteroid Mining, the Future of Energy, you can't build that base on the surface of the moon. Okay? You can't build the base on the surface of the moon. Maybe in the South Pole, behind the ridge of a crater that's out of the line of the sunlight, but then you're dark all the time. You never have light at all. You have to put your solar panels and all that up on the ridge and then run the cables down the dark side of that ridge. Obviously, the moon does not rotate on its axis, but once every 28 days, which is why one side of the moon always faces us, because that's how long it takes to go around the Earth. It's tidally, gravitationally locked to the Earth, so it doesn't sit there and spin on its axis, except for once every 28 days. That's just something that it's settled into doing after 25 million years, and the moon is pretty stable with respect to that. So my assertion is that a lunar base, a lunar colony, has to be built under the surface. It has to be built in one of the lava vents on the moon. And this is going to take, it's going to take 2 things. First of all is the development of what we call cislunar space. This is the space between Earth and the moon. Right now, there is not much. We have a bunch of junk. We have a few repurposed things, but I'm talking GPS satellites and communication satellites and navigation satellites that will allow drones to land equipment on the moon and take off again, come back to Earth, get more equipment, and go back up again. This is right down SpaceX's alley, right down their alley. This is exactly what they would do. A reusable drone, like a 18-wheeler, coming back to the Earth, loading up with things like kilowatt generators and well, we call them mapping dogs. These are legged rovers. They're not on tracks or wheels. They're on legs, so they can walk over, rocks and get close to these inside lava vents and try to get these things mapped. Because once they're mapped, we find out they have a smooth bottom, they have a ceiling that's maybe 150 or 250 feet tall. Then we know what kind of equipment we can stuff down in that lava vent. And this is where companies like Bigelow, which makes an inflatable, multi-layered, flexible kind of habitat, they send it up deflated. So it's kind of like freeze-dried coffee. It's all the air is sucked out of it, and it doesn't take up much space. It weighs the same, but it doesn't take up much space. You haul it up to the moon, you drag it into the lava vent and put it on a piece of flat ground in there, and then you inflate it with atmosphere, with air, with oxygen and nitrogen. And when you inflate it, the structure, the exoskeleton of this thing expands, and you end up with something 8 to 10 times the size of the original package, something humans could go inside of and live inside of in relative comfort. And the reason you have to build them on the inside of the moon is because of the very angry protons that are hurled at the moon from the sun. We get them too, but we have a magnetosphere, we have an atmosphere and an ionosphere that absorbs a lot of that stuff. And it doesn't really do a lot of damage to us on the surface unless you stay out in the sun too long. But on the moon, man, it's a proton bath. You'll be killed in a matter of an hour by being exposed to this on the moon. And it will chew holes through just about anything you want to put up there as far as a wall or a ceiling or a structure. So build it on the inside of the moon and you get away from all that. And that's where the AI comes in. The AI has to optimize all of this. Like you could ask the AI, you could ask Grok probably or ChatGPT, design for me a structure that would go inside a 150 meter opening and weigh less than 60,000 pounds. You could probably do that, but it would be wrong. I guarantee you it would be wrong. By the time you got it up there and got it stuffed in there, you said, well, this isn't going to work, But AI, as long as it had the data from these, what we call walking dogs that are able to map in great detail the regolith and the structure, with that data, they can then optimize and design the perfect fitting habitat to go up there. We use the same thing here. I don't know, how many of you have had granite countertops put in your house? Yes? Several of you? Okay, several of you had granite countertops put in your house. The guy that comes there sets his little measuring device up on a tripod, and then he sets it in several locations and shoots key spots of your cabinets, windowsills, etc. And what the AI program does is it draws the perfectly cut granite countertop to fit all those areas, your sink and your electrical outlets and your windowsills and all that. It fits all that stuff. And then they feed that program into the water jet that actually cuts the granite. And by God, when they bring that granite to your house and those guys pack it in there, it fits perfect. It fits perfect. They put the glue in, they miter it, glue on the miters, and they suck it together, and it's absolutely flawless. Same thing, except instead of mapping your cabinets and the layout of your kitchen and the location of the sink and the receptacles and the windowsills, it's measuring all of the outcroppings in the lava tube so that it knows exactly how to fit this structure in there so that when you walk around in it, it doesn't rock and roll, and or when you inflate it, it doesn't hit the ceiling that kind of stuff. That's what the AI is for. That's why they purchase it. Now, why would you think they would make that investment so that they can have the perfect habitat? Because the payoff is there. The payoff is there. The helium-3 deposits on the south pole of the moon have enough fuel, we already have confirmed, to power the Earth for 10,000 years. The value of those deposits is invaluable. You wouldn't measure it in terms of trillions. You would measure it in terms of quadrillions. Yeah, 1,000 trillion. 1,000 trillion. It would make money irrelevant. It would provide so much energy that it could transform the entire face of the Earth with no nuclear waste, no radiation. True. So last year, and I'll tell you how recent this is, they're kind of catching up with me. Maybe they read my book. Last year, Musk called the moon a distraction. They called it a distraction, said, we're just going to touch and go on the moon. We're going to touch and go. We're going straight to Mars. And I do talk about the value of mining asteroids. I've been talking about it since I was in the 8th grade. I mean, I was decades and decades ahead of everybody in NASA. But you have to go, 55 million miles to get to Mars. And then the asteroid belt is beyond that. And we don't even have the technology to wrestle with a big asteroid. We've gotten samples off of them, but only for, experimental measurement, maybe a trash can lid of samples. But something, the size of Detroit that could really be valuable and wrestle it to the surface of Mars and build something with it, or build something in orbit of Mars, or use it to build put it in one of the gravity wells around Mars and build a orbiting station that would be big enough to house people. We're at least 30 years away from making that happen. But we're about 3 years away from actually making a lunar colony. It's a big deal. So NASA targeted today for the launch of its Artemis 2 mission after the leak that they had, the hydrogen leak. It's going to be a 10-day mission, go around the moon and back to Earth. They're not going to land on the moon, as I've said many times. They're just going to go around the moon and they're going to see what it does to the astronauts. I don't know if I would even be one of those astronauts. Stay in that little tiny tin can for 10 days. I'm not there. Believe me, I've sat in Orion. It's too small for me. Too small for me. Now, maybe astronauts are little pint-sized people and they go through psychological training to see if they can not go stir crazy in a can that size for 10 days. With all kinds of things worrying them, like, is this thing going to leak? Am I going to get hit by a small meteorite? There's a lot to keep you awake when you're in no man's land that no one's ever been to before, or space no one's ever been to before. Now, we did send Orion 1, Artemis 1 around the moon where there was an empty capsule. It had some stuffed animals in it and a bunch of equipment. But they said, oh, yeah, we did that, so now we can do it with humans in it. Well, Elon has the idea of, I think, he hasn't revealed this yet, but time will tell, of putting robots, actual walking, talking robots on the moon to distribute equipment and maybe even put it together and assemble it to create a place where humans can go once we do send them. Because we're not going to be able to send a habitat on the same ship as the astronauts. For one thing, it takes up too much space and it's too heavy. For the second thing, once they get there, humans won't be able to pick this stuff up and move it around. They don't have any tractors. They don't have cranes. They don't have backhoes. They're not strong enough to do it. But robots are. Robots are. A robot that can pick up 2,000 pounds here on Earth can pick up 12,000 pounds on the moon. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And NASA has not done a thorough job of fixing design issues with the hydrogen fittings and hoses and connections. Hydrogen's just 1 gram per mole. It's a little tiny proton. It will leak through almost anything. That's another advantage that SpaceX has. Its fuel is methane, right? So it's 16 times larger than the hydrogen molecule, and it is far easier and far safer to transport. And by the way, liquid oxygen is also volatile, but it weighs 32 grams per mole as well. And it's not so prone to leaks, but it is very explosive around oil. So no greasing the fittings. We already know this from bad experiences. And the first crewed moon mission in more than 50 years could be launched by March 6th. I'm saying it's probably another delay. The Artemis 2 mission, which will last about 10 days, it aims to set the stage for an eventual human landing on the lunar surface for the first time since the Apollo missions in the 60s and 70s. But this is the next mission is going to involve transferring astronauts from an Orion capsule to a Starship in space. And once they're in the Starship, then the Starship's going to land on the moon. Yeah, that's a big deal. This is a very, very complex mission coming up. But the next windows are, let's see, April the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and the 11th of March. And the 1st to the 6th of April. Oh, I'm sorry, the 6th through the 11th of March and the 1st through the 6th of April. We missed that window, we're done. And I hope they don't still have hydrogen leaks by then. But even if you have them fixed by the time you light that candle, it's all bets are off again, right? And a potential February launch was ruled out after a pre-flight test known as a wet dress rehearsal. I told you about that. We had a fitting that also leaked during Artemis 1, and it resulted in the delay of Artemis 1, but they fixed it and launched. All right, Seahawks are now up 9, and New England has still scored nothing, which pleases me. Let's see here. I don't want to talk about who the crew is. That's irrelevant. They're not going to be doing anything but playing cards up there. Once they're in orbit, the astronauts will test how the Orion handles. This will involve manually flying the capsule in Earth orbit to practice steering and lining it up with spacecraft for future moon landings. As I said, they're going to dock with a Starship and transfer astronauts into the Starship so the Starship can land on the moon. Let's see. No, they're not going to land on the moon. They're going to go around the moon 40,000 miles beyond the moon, which is the furthest any human's ever been away from Earth. The final choice of a spacecraft, this is what NASA says, to take the crew down to the lunar surface has not been made. It will either be Starship, SpaceX's Starship, or a craft designed by Jeff Bezos, the Blue Origin. I'm going to go with SpaceX. I'm just saying that they've made a huge investment and they're focused on it now, and they're going to solve all the problems. When Artemis 3 finally flies, and they're estimating it'll be 2027 sometimes, which I think is very aggressive. After this, the aim is to have a sustained human presence on the moon. That means some human on the moon at all times. They will rotate out. Some will go up and work 2, 3, 4 weeks, get back on a ship, come back to Earth. We'll test them out and see how they're doing. But I can tell you right now, it's probably doable. I mean, I would go to the moon if I was just a couple years younger, if I was in a lot better shape than I am right now, and I'm in pretty damn good shape for my age. I would go to the moon. I would do one of these short trips to the moon. I'm used to going to areas that are absolute freaking wastelands and creating functional operating plants. I'm used to doing it. I'm one of the few people in this country that has the experience to do that. So, yeah. Oh, yes, I would. I would go. Oh, you watched it. Tatanka Dave says the Turning Point USA halftime show was good. One thing we know is that the Bad Bunny halftime show was pure crap. And I think the statistics are going to be amazing. They're going to be amazing. Like 500 million people watch Kid Rock and his halftime show, and 20,000 people watch the Bad Bunny. Have you seen some of the Super Bowl commercials? Some are okay. Some are okay. I like the Lay's potato guy that's retiring. I did not like the take a look at your pee commercial. I didn't like that commercial at all. I don't get it. I mean, you could do that commercial, but during a Super Bowl? Seriously? Seriously? Yeah. We don't have any Dorito or Tide commercials that are iconic. Yeah, JJ. Space Odyssey 2027. Here we go. Yeah, Washakiwin says, I'm used to going to Wastelands too. I've been to Cleveland Stadium for a game. Very funny. No, I'm talking about going someplace where there ain't nothing. No streets, no buildings, no power lines, nothing. And a year and a half later, there's a plant there and people are working. Green grass everywhere, trees, parking lot, equipment, everything. Very few people have that experience. Usually it takes a big crew of people, but I'll tell you, I go in sometimes and the big crew's been playing mumbly peg for 2 years and way behind schedule. After I get there, things get back on schedule and it gets built. All right, Space Force. This is a good story. I wrote 3 chapters on Space Force in my book because Space Force has a huge mission, and Space Force was created because Space Command was so corrupt. Space Command has been run by the Air Force since the beginning, since the word space was spelled for the first time, since NASA's creation. It's always been run by the Air Force. The trouble is that as those captains and majors and colonels became generals, it all got corrupt. It became a huge money laundering operation and contractors making more money than God and nothing getting done. And no straight answers being given to the American people. It wasn't until the 2006 L-Cross mission. I've explained that so many times on this program, I probably don't need to give you a whole explanation this time. But the L-Cross mission is what discovered the helium-3 reservoir on the south pole of the moon. Now, that's been 20 years, yes, but a lot can happen in 20 years, but it takes 20 years to get a lot to happen. It takes 20 years to get a lot to happen. And we're there. We're there now. They now realize what it is worth and what we can do with it. And that's what has stimulated the rush. But the rush, Earth Explorers, didn't come from governments. It came from governments getting out of the way, yes. It came from companies like Blue Origin. It came from companies like SpaceX, Planetoid Mines, Rocket Labs. It came from private companies who are solving the problems and making a huge return on their investment because NASA is not able to do that. That's not in their wheelhouse. Their wheelhouse is to spend money. NASA doesn't even run its facilities very efficiently. Space City in Texas is way, way more efficient than Cape Canaveral or Huntsville or any of these places. But that's where the air traffic control is for space. That's basically where air traffic control is for space. SpaceX has to ask the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, they have to ask them for permission to fly through the atmosphere. Everything has to be cleared through the government. But it isn't the government that's doing it. It's private contractors. And once it gets into private contractors' hands, and oh my gosh, Earth Explorers, there have been so many movies made on this. If you have not watched, I believe it is on Amazon. It's called For All Mankind. Have you ever seen that series? It's a space drama that has to do with what happens if Russia landed on the moon first, and it goes from there. And it's the acting is off the chain, but the science is very, very good, and it takes you all the way to the point where they capture an asteroid and wrestle it into an orbit around Mars. It's enormous. And the other is The Expanse. Both of these series, both space dramas, both go into a lot of detail of what's involved to develop our solar system. But it's all done mostly by private companies. And that part is true. I don't think governments are in a position to do it. For one thing, there isn't enough tax money on Earth to make it happen. It has to happen from private investment. So Space Force, though, has been challenged. A couple challenges, and they're serious challenges. I'm going to go into quite a bit of detail right after the break, but both Russia and China have posed formidable threats to the status quo in space. Russian spacecraft have reportedly been intercepting the communications of at least a dozen high-value European satellites. In the latest Ukraine-related scare by Moscow. However, any information gleaned would be from communications that the satellite operators failed to encrypt. But it isn't that easy to do. Okay, when I was trying to get a grant from the U.S. government through GSA, and I went to the Pentagon and I went to Fort Bragg and spoke to generals and made proposals, and nothing ever got funded. But the thing that they were mostly concerned with, they kept bringing it up over and over and over again, was the cybersecurity. They wanted cybersecurity. They were really nervous about it. Officials told the reporters that such interceptions risk exposing sensitive data and could even give Russia the ability to interfere with satellite trajectories or even force them offline entirely. One of the things that we realize when we build these what we call space trucks, or we call them CubeSats, or they go by a lot of different names, is they have a very similar software structure called Linux. Okay, and the reason they have that is because the private companies that develop them almost always go out of business, or they get amalgamated or bought out or whatever, even if they're successful or if they fail. Well, this requires everybody to use the same software structure, the same operating system. And they use Linux because it's compatible with things like Zigbee boards, which are little radios, or with things like a Raspberry Pi. That's Pi, not PIE. And these are hardware components that are developed by Arduino, and they all operate off Linux, which is basically open source operating system. To encrypt beyond that is difficult to do, and they don't want you to do it because they want all of that equipment that's old to be amalgamated into newer equipment or newer systems. So let's take a quick break. I'll explain much more when we come back. Don't go away. 3 minutes, we'll be back.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
Through everything, we have to remember that we have more in common than not in common. And to find this common ground, tune in to Conversations with Eagle Flower, Wednesdays, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio A. Because we come to this table of life to learn in the best possible way and experience this gift of life from our mutual Creator. So let's learn together and build our best future with Conversations with Eagle Flower, Wednesdays, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Studio A on Revolution Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Sunday at 5 p.m. Studio B for Strange Universe. The Strange Universe.
Are you interested in the paranormal, murder mystery, real natural law? Do you enjoy interviews with amazing guests? Then join Crypt Rick every Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Revolution Radio. Studio A, freedomslips.com. Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking. Welcome to the Crypt.
The rooster has crowed out the opening bars of a new day. You've dragged yourself out of bed. You turn on your device. You want to know what's going on in the world. But you're hungry for a topical show that serves up those breakfast headlines just that little bit differently. Do you like your early morning news the way you like your eggs over easy? Served with slathers of salsa-like sass? Do you like those first headlines of the day to deliver a punch as powerful as that first cup of joe? Join Mitchell Bupp at his breakfast table for Revolution in the Morning, where he will digest, dissect, and dismantle those new day's national and global news headlines with razor-sharp relish. Find Mitchell here at revolution.radio every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on Studio B.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for hanging in there while we took that short break. Now back to America Free Radio with host Brooks Agnew here at Revolution Radio.
Oh, thank you so much. Revolution Radio does a great job with the station identification. We really, really appreciate our good friends at Revolution Radio. Please remember that you're listening to this because it is a listener-supported network. And we rely upon you and your small donations to keep this message going out, keep the truth flowing. Now, NPR took money out of your paycheck for decades against your will and used it to put propaganda out there that millions of people heard. Revolution Radio is part of freedomslips.org, freedomslips.org. I want you to go there, become a patron of the studio, tax yourself. Okay, they already took the money from you for NPR. Now they're not taking it anymore. So you have extra money. And what I want you to do is to take $2 or $3, $4 a month and send it to freedomslips.org and become a patron. It's important. And if 100,000 of you do this, we can save the world. We can save the world. Okay, those of you listening on Revolution Radio through Orange Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, all these different rebroadcasters, welcome. Thank you so much for listening by audio, but listen closely. We're going to go to my website now, which is brooksagnew.com, brooksagnew.com. Those of you watching by video, this is going to be super simple because you already see one of my websites up there, which is America Free Radio. We're going to click on the button that says Brooks Agnew's homepage, and that's going to take you to my homepage, brooksagnew.com. You'll know you're in the right place because it says I'm Brooks Agnew. There's my picture. It just doesn't get any simpler than that. If you scroll down just a little bit, you're going to see two blue buttons. One says, get my free newsletter. I mean, come on, people. It doesn't get any easier than that. I'm only going to send you a newsletter twice a week. It's going to have a link to tonight's program or the current program and links to different goodies. I won't spam you. I don't sell your information. The other button is the Ivan and Fenbin without a prescription. If we click on that button, it should take us to my website. I get so many pop-ups. No, still not going to work. And we did. We made it. All right. So we're at the website where you can get ivermectin and fenbendazole for yourself without a prescription. Okay, this is how it's done. All you do is click the Buy Now button, follow the short instructions. It's not complicated, and we will ship it directly to you. Now, we moved our shipping from Japan to the U.S., so now we have a U.S. warehouse. We're stocking that warehouse. We did this in mid-December. So now what is happening is we're in the process of stocking that, and we got hit with a 2-week snowstorm, so things are a little delayed. Have patience. We'll get it filled up, and then we'll be able to ship this stuff in less than 7 days to you. The other thing I want you to pay attention to is many people ask me because they're treating cancer with these two medications. There's a book called Fenbendazole and Ivermectin Protocols. It's a handbook. It's the #1 bestseller in its field. I don't make any money on it, but it will answer all your questions, okay? All you have to do is click this, get the handbook, and Andrew Carrington's #1 selling book can be yours. And then you'll have all your questions answered the right way. And don't forget about True Niagen. I take it every single day, 600 milligrams. It keeps you young and keeps the aging gods away by letting you build up your NAD in your body. All right, let's get back to it because we have a lot of stuff to talk about yet. We were talking about Russia's threat and how formidable it is. It's widely reported that Russian spacecraft have increasingly shadowed European satellites in recent years. They just track them closely as the tensions with the West spiraled related to Ukraine. Anything that's not encrypted, even if it is encrypted, they're figuring out. Oh, by the way, Seattle's ahead 12-0. That's 4 field goals. Defenses on both sides are really, really good, but it's surprising to me that the Seahawks have not been able to make a touchdown. However, we're most of the way through the third quarter. Anything could happen. Anything could break apart. Not very many penalties. I'm very pleased with that part of the game. So the other thing that's happening is, well, the Russians can draw on a fleet of roughly 200 satellites with military utility. In Ukraine, they just have one satellite. So the disparity underlines not only Kiev's vulnerability in the early stages of the war, but a broader strategic gap that now occupies European policymakers. In modern conflicts, space-based intelligence is not a luxury. It is a prerequisite for survival. And that's why Russia's totally kicking Ukraine's ass. Since then, Ukraine has ramped up its domestic capability and secured access to images from commercial and allied constellations. The lesson hasn't been lost on Brussels. The EU's Commissioner for Defense and Space, his name is Andrius Kubilius, has called for a big bang approach to space, arguing that investments must match those more traditional defense priorities, but they're so far behind the curve. I don't think they're going to be able to launch anything to have an effect. And the other threat comes from China. And I'm gonna scroll down a little bit because I have a story on robotics on the moon. But China has developed what it calls a satellite killer. Now, I don't have any proof of this, but my gut tells me that China didn't develop anything. They didn't develop anything. They copied what America already has. America has a satellite killer, and now China has a satellite killer. So I'll ask you a question. What do you think a U.S. aircraft carrier could actually do in battle without satellite support? Yeah, not a hell of a lot. We're not flying a lot of airplanes. We're not flying a lot of smart missiles and cruise missiles, because you don't have any satellite support. If they shoot the satellites out, then you have no satellite support. Everything's blind. So China has copied and effectively developed a new weapon. It's a new compact high-power microwave weapon. The TPG-1000C has been developed at a Shanghai Nuclear Technology Institute, which could become one of the most serious threats to the Starlink satellite network. Now, you have to understand, satellites in the Starlink system are small. They're about the size of a drink cooler, like you take to a football game. Not the little lunch pail size one, but the bigger one. That's pretty small when you're orbiting up there 200 miles above the Earth. The device can deliver 20 gigawatts of energy for up to a full minute. That's a lot of energy. A quick shot, maybe not so destructive. 1 minute on a satellite, it would shoot a hole right through it. It would melt it into a piece of junk. This TPG-1000 is the world's first compact driver for high-power microwave weapons. The American one is not compact, but it's just as powerful. It can shoot satellites out of the sky as well. It was created at Northwest Institute of Nuclear Technology in Shanghai. The device can deliver 20 gigawatts of power for up to a minute. At just 4 meters long and weighing just 5 tons, the device is small enough to be mounted on trucks, warships, airplanes, even satellites. Some Chinese experts estimate that a ground-based microwave weapon with a power of over 1 gigawatt could be capable of seriously disrupting or even damaging satellites in low Earth orbit, as long as you have a clear sky. The previously known similar systems could operate continuously for no more than about probably 5 to 6 seconds, officially less than 10 seconds, unofficially. But that's still enough to do some damage. But 1 minute, holy crap. The Russian Sinus 7 drive, for instance, was operational for about 1 second, delivering about 100 pulses per shot, and it weighed 10 tons. China has repeatedly signaled that Starlink poses a serious threat to its national security. So does Iran. Iran says the same thing. If you can't take the Starlink satellites out, we can't do to our people what we want to do to them, because people will film it on their cell phones and get it out to the world, and the world will come down on them like a ton of bricks. But Chinese military researchers are currently developing the new Starlink killer weapons. And I'm sure Starlink are not the real satellites they want to go after. There are military satellites that we have in space. Very, very sophisticated, very high resolution satellites and all kinds of bandwidths, not just visible, that they want to take out. SpaceX has lowered the orbital altitude of its Starlink satellites to reduce the risk of collisions, but that makes them more vulnerable because they're closer to the surface. They have to have a lot of fuel on board in order to maintain an orbit like that, because if you start rubbing against the upper atmosphere, your orbit is going to decay and you're going to end up burning up in the atmosphere. Of course, the issue is that if they disable a satellite up there, what's going to happen is that satellite is now going to become a bumper car. It's going to become a bumper car. So it can go careening into other satellites in space, and pretty soon you have a chain reaction junkyard up there. One satellite turns into 200 small pieces that take out 200 other satellites, and the chain reaction is quite devastating. Anyway, you understand what I'm talking about here. It is not a defensive weapon like they make it out to be. This is a doomsday weapon. It's a doomsday weapon, because once you start taking satellites out and they become now kinetically damaging in space, the whole thing comes apart. That's why Starlink moved its satellites closer into Earth, because the optimum Earth orbit is full. It's full of stuff. That's one of the reasons why the FAA has to get involved in all the launches, because they don't want you going up there and running into a bunch of satellites. You remember the movie WALL-E? It was an animated movie. You remember when the spaceship launched out to get out of Earth or leave Earth, like an ark with a bunch of humans on it? All the satellites it bumped into going out. Well, similar to that. It's a cartoon, but you get the idea. And I appreciate that, guys. Yeah. Okay, so not to change subjects, but I think Colombia has been given an ultimatum, and they're probably going to have to come to the table, figure out a way to do better with their coffee industry and less with their cocaine industry. President Trump has declared that the United States is not in the business of, not interested in buying cocaine anymore. And if you think that's true, well, I have a bridge in Arizona I want to sell you. Yes, I get all that, Boo. I got all that. Okay, we'll cover that briefly. We'll go into more detail on Wednesday. And I appreciate your sentiment, Alm 3, Texas. I think Brooks Agnew is too intelligent for the Pentagoners. They won't take him up on things because he knows too much. It's possible. I mean, if I was Elon Musk, they would take me up on it. But if you don't have the money to put behind it, they're not really interested in your ideas. What is it? Oh, I'm just checking Foxhole really quick. Oh, yeah. No, it was called Iron Sky, Mad Hat. It wasn't Iron Nazis on the Moon. It was called Iron Sky. It was a great movie. So the gist of the movie is that the president wants to send a manned mission to the moon. So they send a DEI mission. Yeah, a woman, a black, blah, blah, blah. Send a DEI mission to the moon. And they land there and discover that the Nazis have a base there, and they've had one there since like the 40s. So they make contact, and one of the things that the Nazis discover is a cell phone on one of the astronauts, in the possession of one of the astronauts. Well, they're fascinated by its computing power. It's more powerful than their biggest computers on the moon. So they incorporate the cell phone into their Nazi base, and they decide to launch an attack with their now advanced technology against Earth. And what happens is the Nazis have developed helium-3, and that's how they're able to sustain their base on the moon. Well, what happens is the president of the United States discovers that, in fact, everybody discovers that the Nazis have figured out how to mine and how to use helium-3 to make energy on the moon. And it becomes so valuable that every single nation that can, including North Korea, launches an attack on the moon to steal that technology. And it's a hilarious movie, but it actually very clever, very well done. It's called Iron Sky. You should check it out sometime. And Rasta, the Stennis Space Center, he lives down in Mississippi, evidently, and he hears some of the activity that goes on. It's 14,000 acres. The Stennis Space Center in outside of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It's actually Stennis Space Center, but it's drivable from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And it has a museum there, like a Smithsonian that talks about all the space missions. In fact, that's where I first sat in an Orion capsule, was the Stennis Space Center. But they also have several rocket engine test stands, test buildings. And I've been to several tests down there. It's awesome. Awesome to go to a rocket test in Stennis Space Center. But the rest of it is all rivers and woods. And if you read the book Charm of Favor, you understand this is where the terrorist builds his bomb. Yes, it's a great book. You should read Charm of Favor. He claims that what he hears are gunboats doing special operations down there, practicing. It makes sense. But the Stennis compound is not very well secured. There's like a highway that goes through it. And yes, it is remote, but it isn't that bad. I drove my truck down there and I drove my motorcycle down there several times. It's very cool place to go. If you're into space. If you're not, then it's boring. But all right, let's talk a little bit about robots. I mentioned earlier that the successful company that builds a lunar colony is going to have to deploy robots. And I would say, and this is a prediction of mine, I haven't read this anywhere, nobody's made this claim, but you mark my words, and you can mark it if you want to, because it's February 8th, Super Bowl Sunday. And by the way, I don't have the Super Bowl feed anymore, so I can't tell you the score. You'll have to keep up with it, Foxhole, and tell me what's going on. And Rasta's read the book on Arduino. Hey, Arduino can do a lot of stuff. Arduino's a whole catalog of functionality. I've used them to build speedometers for my electric vehicles. Now, what happens distant sight is, if you're watching on YouTube, once you get to 1 hour on YouTube, they drop you to 480. It starts out at 780 or 1080, but after 1 hour, it automatically drops to 480. So that's why the video quality is for shit. That's just the way YouTube treats us. And they treat everybody the same way. We have a 2-hour show, and that's why the video quality goes to crap. It might not be humans that go to the moon first. Now, I don't mean aliens. It might be robots. Oh, what is it? Oh, it's still 12-0 from what I can see. The feed came back on. The only challenge to making this happen is the same challenge that we face in the electric vehicle industry. We have since I started building electric vehicles over a decade ago. It's the battery. The batteries are for shit. Nobody makes a good battery. And forget about lithium, forget about sodium. That's all crap, especially when it comes to the moon. Because you have to have a ability to operate at minus 240 degrees Fahrenheit and plus 240 degrees Fahrenheit. The Chinese humanoid robotic firms are laser focused on advancing robot brains for the next gen platforms already entering series production and heading to the factory floors this year. For Earth, that's wonderful. A robot can run for 30, 40 minutes at peak operational capabilities, and then they're going to die. A robot requires a lot of energy to run, has a lot of actuators which eat up energy. The brain, the computer brain, also eats up energy. The robot cannot carry a huge backpack. It can't carry a 1,000-pound battery pack. For one thing, if it walked around your house, it would just punch holes in the floor. The batteries are small and compact, which means they're small and compact. They don't last very long. And robots need thousands of watts in order to do what they do. And that energy's got to come from somewhere. It's got to be stored somewhere. Once these intelligent models push beyond scripted video stunts, you've seen all the backflips and the, cracking an egg and frying it in a pan and sewing and cooking and all this stuff. Those are 2-minute, 3-minute videos. Wonderful. Awesome. But they can't get beyond that because they don't have the batteries. They can't go to the battlefield and fight humans in the battlefield. You know why? Because a human can eat a Snickers bar and go all day long on that and a bottle of water. A human can turn peanut butter into eye tissue, right? We can eat anything and make energy and operate. A robot needs electricity, and it's not going to get it in the battlefield. All the human has to do is wait. Just wait. Shoot that robot 2 or 3 times, pin it down a little bit, run the other way, and make that robot move or climb or trudge through mud or snow or a jungle or something. And that robot's going to die. It's going to die. It's going to run out of energy and die because nobody has the battery. The Shanghai Morning Post reported that China-based robots from Dobot have developed the Dobot VLA, which is a vision language action model that allows its full-size humanoid atom robot to see through clusters of tasks, understand ambiguous instructions, and make autonomous decisions to get the job done, as long as the job doesn't take any longer than 5 minutes. See, all these grandiose claims don't mean diddly shit if you can't keep the lights on. It would be like you got the fastest laptop in the world. You could do CGI generations with it, but it has a 15-minute battery life. What good is it if it's not plugged in to the cord, to the wall, and you can afford the light bill to run them? It's not worth anything. The ability to adapt autonomously based on an understanding of the environment is the starting point for the humanoid robots to create value in industrial applications. Why? Because they'll be tethered. They'll be tethered, or they'll be able to recharge every 30 minutes. Rival UB Tech open sourced its human-focused multimodal model, Thinker, on GitHub and Hugging Face, aiming to address common embodied robot issues such as lag and spatial inaccuracies. Let me give you an example of this. You remember the problems that the automatic driving vehicles had in the very beginning. I mean, I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm trying to remember the name of the engineering company that had built the first electric roadster for Tesla, and they were working on the Model S. I don't think it was Tesla Engineering. There was an engineering firm in Tesla that we worked with. And they won the contest. It was a $100,000 contest. It was put up on an auto drive vehicle. The vehicle had to negotiate a map and end up at a destination. But yeah, Snickerbots. That's very good, Flippy. We're Snickerbots. That's what we are. The electric cars were having trouble negotiating things that would surprise you. For instance, a tractor trailer where the trailer is that shiny aluminum. You know what I'm talking about? The kind of mirror finish, diamond pattern, shiny aluminum. Yes, the vision systems in the vehicle couldn't see the trailers. And so they were smashing into them and not good, a lot of accidents. The other things that happen is that and these are Lorentzian errors for which the human body is uniquely crafted. A human can run at 25 miles an hour plus, 25 miles an hour, track a baseball that's traveling 100 miles an hour in the air, plot an intersecting course, intersect that ball, reach up at exactly the right moment, and grab that ball out of the air with one hand. That's what a human can do. A robot cannot do that. A robot cannot do that yet. And that's only part of the environment around us. It's not just a baseball on a grassy field with a outfielder. It's all the other stuff that's happening around. People on the sidewalk, cars going by, doors opening and closing, lights going on and off, glass surfaces, black surfaces, silver surfaces, matte surfaces. We, with our optical equipment, we can see all this and we can negotiate. Even someone with a 60 IQ can run a football up the field and avoid other players. A robot needs a massively powerful brain to be able to do this, and it needs the muscle, the actuators that have the power to be able to do this. That doesn't exist yet. It's been pointed out that China's robotic industry is accelerating a shift from physical stunts that rely on pre-programmed routines, which you get to see the end result, but you don't get to see the 200 times they broke robots trying to do that stunt off camera or on camera and it didn't do it. And turning this into sophisticated abilities that require learning and adapting in the real world, seen as essential for mass commercial adoption in manufacturing and other scenarios. Robots can get good at one thing and by repetition master it. But humans can do it. A 6-year-old can do what a robot can't do. First time. The broader theme is that humanoid robot brains are being developed at hyper speed, suggesting these robots are going to be marching on factory floors in the very near term, not just in China, but also across the Western world. And it's not just the factory floors. It's going to be, people that are handicapped. It's going to be hazardous locations, heat, gas, poisons. You send a robot in to turn off a valve. You send a robot in to, turn on the sprinklers or to open the vent, where a human can't do that. It's coming, but this is a big jump. Of course, humanoid robots begin the march on the assembly lines, and it means that some of these systems could be dual use. Maybe they'll work very fine on the factory floor, but they will be absolutely devastating in the battlefield because a human shoots a bullet and it's rare that the bullet hits its target unless you shoot a whole bunch of bullets in that general direction. A robot can drive a nail at 150 yards with one shot. It never misses. Human pokes his head around the corner to take a look. He's dead. Just like that. You've seen the soccer demonstrations where they have a robotic goalie. and the goalie has to block the kick, and they have all these famous soccer players trying to kick a ball past the robot. And the only guy that did it, of course, is a guy that kicked his shoe first and then kicked the ball. And the robot responded to the shoe, but didn't stop the ball because it had a decoy, which was the shoe. Well, this is the way it would go in the battlefield as well. And as I've been predicting for about 2 years now, robots are going to build the moon colony infrastructure, and it's going to be done decades faster than humans can do it. They don't need air. They don't need a spacesuit. They can go up there and work for a couple of weeks in the lunar day and get a lot done. If and only if the battery can be created to power the robots. That has not been done yet. Even if a battery could be developed, we don't know how big it would be. We don't know how much it would weigh, and we don't know what hazards that battery would pose to humans later on. We could send them up and say power them by a plutonium battery, which can put out about 75 watts, maybe 200 watts. But 200 watts is not enough to run a robot. If you're going to run a robot, it needs to be able to walk, balance, lift, carry something a certain distance, assemble something, which means it has to have fasteners like nuts or bolts or clips or something, a welder, something to put together the structure. It's some assembly required, and the robot's going to have to be able to do all that, and it only has 2 weeks to do it in because then it's going to get too cold, and that plutonium battery is just going to be enough energy to keep that thing from dying in the lunar night. And of course, we told you about the kilowatt generators. These are 1,000 watt generators. There have to be one for every single human sent to the moon. And robotics is transitioning from prototype to production probably next year, but it's going to be limited, very limited production and very limited application. The market right now, if you really stretch it, is $3 billion. That's not really exciting for most companies because, hang on a second. It's now 19-0 Seahawks. So it's obvious that the Seahawks have made a touchdown when they had 12. And the most important and valuable news is that New England has 0. Yes, 0. $3 billion is not that big of a marketplace because the company that is first in can probably control the market share for a while. Prius. You remember the Toyota Prius? It was a hybrid vehicle. It was the first to market. It could only go 10 miles on a charge. That's it. 10 miles. The rest was supplied by the 200 horsepower motor it had under the hood, which operated a generator, which actually drove the electric vehicle. Now I think they can go 40 miles on a charge, but that's the ultra luxurious upgraded battery. That's not that good, right? But hear me out. Prius still controls 40% of the market because they were first in. They control the market. The first company into the robotics market is going to control the market share, especially if they can keep up with demand. Toyota could definitely keep up with demand. The more people that want a Prius, the more they built. The batteries for the Prius were so toxic, they were so poisonous that we couldn't even sell them in the United States. They had to come through Canada. The batteries were processed through Canada. The batteries, if you get that orange electrolyte on you, chances are you're going to die. It's that toxic. When a Prius has an accident, they have to call a hazmat team in. It's very toxic. And and still they control the market share. So once somebody penetrates that $3 billion market, of course, Barclays believes that market's going to expand to $40 billion. I'm not buying it. I don't think, unless they force it on us like green technology, they force it like they did windmills, or they force it on us like solar panels, giving huge kickbacks and incentives for people who buy robots. It's not going to grow like that. I'll give you a case in point. There was a company called CEI. I don't even know if they're still around, but in those days, they made the door actuators for your air handling system in your car. So if you set your temperature at, say, 73 degrees, it would open and proportion outside air and inside air in order to achieve 73 degrees. And the doors were all motorized, and they had feedback systems. Well, the motors had to be very quiet. They had to be very quiet. And of course, they had all plastic gears and stuff like that. But you didn't want this door making You didn't want to making these noises in your nice, quiet, Cadillac Escalade. So there were noise standards for the motor. And the issue was that CEI had created a robotic assembly line to make these actuators, which had 3 gears inside of it. Now, they had developed a robot to pick up the 3 gears and put them on the plastic axles in the clamshell and then assemble the unit and screw the screws together. The trouble was they had so much scrap from noise and from inoperative doors that they were behind schedule. They were air shipping parts, they were missing shipments, they were shutting down the assembly plant. This is a big no-no. So they brought me in to fix the problem. So, of course, they had built a sequential line. So if one robot crashed, the line was down because they had one robot for 1 gear. All one robot did is put 1 gear on an axle. If it bent that axle, or if the axle was a little warped, or all the robots were blind. That is to say, they went to X and Y and they dropped a Z down on. And if the axle wasn't there, well, I'm sorry, you just crushed the clamshell and it didn't work. So complex things had to be done. First of all, the robot had to be given eyes. So we put laser micrometers on there so that the robot could find the axle in space. If it wasn't exactly 1,000th of an inch or 2,000ths of an inch out of alignment, it could find it and put the gear on anyway. And the second thing was to make all 3 robots put all 3 gears on and put them in parallel. Well, that took time. I had to redesign, I had to recode all that stuff. I had to integrate the laser micrometers, which took me time. So what I did is I set up a parallel line with a bunch of temps and plastic tables and showed them how to put it together by hand. And guess what? They met production. And all the noise issues went away. They were assembling them by hand, picking the gear up out of a little plastic tub, putting it on the axle, and assembling and using a battery-powered screw gun to screw the clamshell together at the right torque. Almost everything passed, and they caught up with production, stopped air shipping parts, stopped working weekends while I fixed that robotic line. The robotic line cost $5 million, and they thought it was the shit, even though since the day the contractor had originally designed it and put it in, it never made production. I did it with, I think, 12 women that I had working these tables, which were making scarcely minimum wage. We probably paid them $10 an hour. Nowhere near the cost of that robotic line. So I proved several things that day. First of all, that the market for robotic assembly is not what you think it is. Yes, the robot can do the same operation every single time, 24 hours a day, and never complain. But if it's making crap, it makes 100% crap. And believe me, I can take you to any factory within 100 miles of here. It would take a while to take you all those factories. Every single one of them all of them have maintenance guys on site that fix robots. Program robots, pick and place machines, robots that pick parts out of molds, put parts into molds, put parts onto pallets, all of them. Every single company has maintenance guys making $80,000, $90,000 a year that keep that robot running. It's not the market you think it is. Yes, it might be a $3 billion market, but I don't think it's going to expand to a $40 billion market. Not in my lifetime. In one of the latest Barclays Eagle Eye newsletters, the firm internal thematic research for clients highlighted humanoid robotics with several examples of these bots moving past pilot programs to industrial production lines. The industrial robots have been part of a growing automation for half a century. That's 50 years. 50 years. Welding car parts, it does well at that. As I said, a repetitive operation, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without a complaint. Spot welding, arc welding, heli-arcing. They sort mail, they move packages in warehouses, they even flip burgers. But they have been limited in mobility and confined to a narrow set of tasks because they lack the one critical skill. Actually, they lack two. One is understanding context, and the other is the battery. They can't be mobile. They can't go and do stuff because they have to be recharged. When a humanoid robot was asked to water plants, for instance, it could confuse humans with plants. But thanks to recent advances in AI, humanoid robots are now learning to read situations and act accordingly, making them far more scalable than fleets of specialized machines. One of the places that robotics has done a fantastic job adapting to the industry are combines, plows, planters, fertilizers, all kinds of tractor operations for 10,000 acre, 20,000 acre fields. The guy just sits there reading a magazine while the combine or the plow or the disc runs its pattern around in the most optimum way, by the way, around and around this 20,000 acre farm field until the job is done. No overlaps, no missed areas. You don't have big areas where they missed putting seeds in or they missed putting fertilizer. It's done perfectly. And it's all done by satellite. But you've got to have the robotic tractor to be able to make that happen. It's a perfect adaptation. A robot that's equipped with arms and legs and visual reasoning, maybe it can adapt and perform multiple tasks safely, replacing a dozen single-task robots. German carmaker BMW has put humanoid robots on the line in its Spartanburg, South Carolina plant, BMW, where they perform multiple precision-required tasks, such as loading sheet metal parts into welding fixtures. This is obviously a very dangerous operation where you have two pieces that come down and they smash together and make a hood of a car. Well, it's very difficult to get a pick and place to move that sheet metal in exactly where it has to go, where you have these 10,000 pound molds coming together, ka-chunk, to make this hood. I've been to China where they've had humans, one person holding one side of the piece of metal, one person holding the other side of the piece of metal, and they walk into the mold and set that piece of metal. And then they walk out of harm's way, push the buttons, and the mold comes down and makes the hood. One mistake, and you have a dead operator. One mistake, you have a dead operator. And if you put enough safety lights and everything in place, they malfunction enough that not only do you have the inability to see, in other words, somebody is in a blind spot of the sensors, or it faults all the time and interrupts production. We don't do that with humans in this country. We don't move and unload parts from molds with people. It's too dangerous. We use robots. Now, the plunge in production costs for these humanoid robots suggest, and there's a formula for figuring that out, As the global population ages, urbanization continues, and workers prefer change, companies will find use cases for these bots to replace low-skilled labor. Everybody gets bored. Everybody, we used to make windshield washer bottles. They're white polyethylene plastic, right? And they require a grommet, for the motor so that it doesn't leak, and a black cap and all of that. But, occasionally you get flecks of black into the polyethylene when it's melting, contamination. So we have humans looking at the bottles to make sure that none of this contamination is in the plastic, because Americans care. When they open up their hood, they want to see a white windshield washer bottle. They don't want black flecks in it. Why? I have no idea, because in 2 years' time, that bottle is going to be so filthy they would never be able to see anything anyway. But when it's new, they want it new. So we'd have inspectors to watch those bottles as they go down before we put them in the dunnage to go to the factory to be put into the vehicle. People go blind. Unbelievable what goes down there. Bottles with missing caps, bottles with big piece of black plastic melted into the side, missing motors. Why could you do that? Because people go blind. After they process so many bottles, their mind is at the soccer game this afternoon. Their mind is, it's almost 3:30. I got to go pick my kid up from school. Their mind is, man, my wife made me so mad last night. Come on. They're not focusing on the job. And I swear I could have put a combat boot on that assembly line, a black combat boot, and they would put it in the dunnage and ship it to the factory. Robots won't do that. In fact, that's where I first got my experience in building inspection robots, to make sure all the parts were there, to make sure the bottles didn't leak. Was I replacing a human? No, I was augmenting the human. The human put the bottle in, the human pushed the buttons, the machine did all the testing and recorded the result, released it, and the person could then send it on. I had to build all that stuff from scratch. Those things don't exist. You have to build them with components. Well, now the robots are much more sophisticated, but it's still too difficult to do. The key takeaway from this is that humanoid robots, and I'm not against them, humanoid robots could generate powerful near-term tailwinds for industries if you get the right robot in the right application and it doesn't require a lot of maintenance. Yes, robots could be used in logistics, like underwater or in space or in a forest fire. They are already used in agriculture, but they could be used in defense. What if you had a neighborhood that you had to clear out a bunch of enemy, and you didn't want to send your soldiers in because they would get cut to pieces? It's not going to go like it did in Venezuela, where you go down there and 4 minutes later, the battle's over, and the remains of the enemy will fit in a box that would fit a toaster oven. It doesn't work like that every time. Sometimes you have to send a robot in to do the battle. Or it's underwater, or it's in space, or it's at night, or it's in the dark jungle somewhere. But it also has applications in healthcare and elderly care. I have a lot of friends that work in hospitals in service industries, radiology and physical therapy, and they don't make that much money, right? They make about $80,000 a year on the top. Maybe a physical therapist makes a little bit more than that, but not usually. The service industries that go to tech schools don't make that much money. But one of the things that they run into all the time, every day, are people that weigh 250, 350 pounds. And here you got this, 110-pound radiologist, a radiology technician that has to roll somebody over. They get hurt. They hurt their backs. They get damaged, straining to pick up this sack that can't even move themselves around. A robot or a robotic table would be very, very helpful in these situations. Some of the leading robotics companies, including Boston Dynamics, Agility Robotics, Anybotics, ClearPath Robotics, Open Robotics, and Unitree, have already signed an open letter stating that the robotics industry should not be weaponized. You know how far that's going to go. I was one of the original editors for the Peace and Space Initiative to the UN. But guess what? We've been weaponizing space since 1968. So the Peace and Space Initiative to the Secretary General of the UN did diddly shit. We've been weaponizing space for a long time. Of course, robots are going to be weaponized. Foundation is positioning itself as a leader in military humanoid robots. They have a CEO. His name is Sanket Pathak. I would say either Pakistani or Indian. He recently confirmed this move in comments to a tech blog called Humanoids Daily. I might leave the link in the newsletter so you can look it up. Humanoids Daily keeps up with all this stuff. It's where I get a lot of my information on this. But it is emphasizing defense first mindset, which means they totally intend on building battle bots. Its philosophy is reinforced by co-founder Mike LeBlanc, who recently said the team designed the Phantom Mk1 to enter and breach rooms and other high-risk environments ahead of human operators. As LeBlanc put it, the goal here is simple. Do not send a Marine where a robot can go first. And as I told you, they never miss. They have infrared aiming systems. If they have a semi-automatic pistol in their hands and they're shooting 11 rounds, all 11 rounds hit their target first time with a kill shot. Like it or not, the rest of the world, China, Pakistan, Russia, Ukraine, they're already pursuing dual-use robotic strategy, already doing it. And the rise of humanoid robotics on the modern battlefield is absolutely unavoidable. While many U.S. robotics firms emphasize safeguards and ethical constraints, others don't. They're going to make money, and they're going to have huge contracts. What we're seeing today in Ukraine on both sides is a preview of what war in the 2030s is going to look like. And I have to tell you, Earth Explorers, I'm unsettled by it. The first time this encounter happens and Americans lose their lives in a battle with robots, you know what's going to happen. You know exactly what's going to happen. We're going to be dropping robots out of helicopters, just like in Pandora. Remember the movie Avatar? Just like in Pandora, we're going to be dropping robotics or exoskeletons with humans inside of them onto the battlefield. Okay, Star Wars too, yeah. All right, so I have more, but that's all I can go into tonight. I can't see the score right now. Some kind of crazy Super Bowl commercials going on right now. This is America Free Radio. My name is Brooks Agnew. I've been your host for the last 2 hours. Thanks, guys, for hanging around during Super Bowl Sunday. I know you're kind of dividing your attention between the game and me if you're watching the game. Truth Quest Aaron Moriarty. Robots will demand freedom. I doubt that. I'm alive. Yeah. Yes. Terminator knew how to fix itself. Yeah, that's right. And you laugh, but, robotics, if it goes there, it's going to be a hell of a world. Maybe it'll be very, very safe, and maybe it won't. Oh, it's 22-7 Seahawks, fourth quarter, 5 minutes left, 5 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game. I feel good. I think it's going to be a good year. We're going to get through this winter, no problem. We're in the middle of the upswing for the Trump economy. If you're in the United States, trust me, there's $18 trillion worth of industry coming to this country. It will take years to build. There's plenty to do for everybody. Upgrade your skills if you're the working age and get your ass out there and do some great things. We'll see you on Wednesday night right here on America Free Radio.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.